Hi there. I don't really have a plan. So I'm just sort of inviting you into my personal practice today. This is my first movement practice of the day. I spent the morning working in front of my computer at my desk. So, when we do that, our neck and shoulders start to tighten up. The low back might start to get a little cranky. Our legs get a little stiff. So I'm just going to kind of go with the flow and see what my body needs based on how I'm feeling. So I'm going to start out in a tabletop position. So coming onto the hands and knees, I'm going to stack my wrists under my shoulders, my knees, under my hip joints, and I'm just going to start to move around, just kind of experimenting a bit. Just kind of taking the hips side to side. I can feel a little tension in the muscles way down low in my back. And then I'm just going to start to circle the hips a little bit. So just making big circles, first in one direction, and then in the other. So already starting to loosen up some of that tension in the low back. And then I'm just going to kind of like realign myself in tabletop position. And I'm going to start to drop my chest towards the mat, which we don't normally do, but I'm just going to kind of experiment with the shoulders and see what's going on there. So kind of dropping the chest in between the shoulders, and then I'm just going to start to kind of roll the top of the chest around. And I can feel this movement in my shoulder joints. I'm going to start to go the other way. So just kind of experimenting, getting a feel for what's going on in the shoulders and in the neck. And then coming back into a neutral tabletop. I'm going to move through some cat-cows. So as you inhale, drop the belly. Lift and spread the collarbones, tilt the chin up. I'm not making a big movement here. I'm just kind of taking it easy for right now. On the exhale, round the back, press the mat away. Bring your chin towards your chest. And just kind of go back and forth. Again, it doesn't have to be a big movement. It can be just a little bit of extension and flexion in the spine. Nice deep inhale on the cow position. And then nice big exhale as you round into cat. Then we're just going to come back into a neutral tabletop and sort of roll my head around a little bit. So I'm just going to bring my right ear toward my right shoulder and then just let the head drop. And then bring the left ear toward the left shoulder. And then drop. And then this time I'm going to kind of make a circle with the head. A lot of times we're cautioned not to roll the head around in a circle. And there's good reason for that. I'm going to go the other way now. But in this position, when you bring the head back, when you bring the neck into extension, it's really hard to go too far because we're working against gravity. So in some other orientations, gravity is actually sort of assisting in the neck extension, but in this position you have to sort of fight against gravity, so a little bit safer. That feels pretty good. I'm going to come up onto my hands and knees now. My wrists are getting a little tired. So I'm just going to kind of wrap my fingers around my wrist, and I'm going to make a fist and pull my fist down toward the inside of my forearm, and then I'm going to take the hand that's holding onto that wrist, and I'm just going to draw down a little bit. And that can release some of the muscles and tendons in the wrist joint. Sometimes that can get irritated if we've been typing a lot. So go ahead and release that. Wiggle those fingers around and then do the other side. So holding on, make a fist, kind of bring that fist in and then drawing down with the opposite hand. Good, that feels really nice. I'm going to take a deep breath here. And then I'm just going to lower my arms to my sides, kind of shake them out a little bit. Shake out the wrists. Good. And then on an inhale, sweep the arms out to the sides and overhead. On the exhale, I'm going to lower my arms and bring the backs of my hands to my low back. And then I'm going to start to round forward, and everything's just going to flex at the same time. I'm going to set my forehead down on the mat, but if your forehead doesn't come all the way to the mat, that's okay. On the inhale, I'm going to come back up into that kneeling position with arms overhead. And then exhale, hands to the low back, kind of curling in on myself here. And what I'm focusing on as I'm doing that is the sensation in the muscles of my low back, particularly the muscles around the SI joint and just a little bit above that. So just making sure that as I'm coming down, I'm feeling those muscles stretch a little and release a little. Do that one more time. Exhale all the way down, curling in on myself, and then I'm just going to stay here for a breath or two. And you might like to take a deep inhale here, and maybe even a big exhale through the mouth. Again, inhale. And exhale. Very nice. Now I'm going to stretch my arms out in front of me. So still kind of working, I'm in this child's pose position. My knees are rather close together, not all the way together. If you feel more comfortable with the knees wide apart, feel free to adjust. But notice that I'm not resting my arms. My forearms are off the mat, and I'm kind of actively reaching through the arms, pressing down a little through the palms. So I'm feeling this around the shoulder blades, under the shoulder blades, and in the shoulder joint. And it feels really nice. It feels like a release in that area. Good. Let's lift the head and chest. You can kind of keep the hands where they are. Now I'm going to stack my hips over my knees, and I'm going to walk my hands out a little bit farther away and come into puppy pose. So I'm going to lower the forehead and the shoulders toward the mat. Now this is a much bigger release in the shoulder joint. I can feel my shoulders sort of protesting a little bit. So I'm just going to take my hands out a little bit further apart, create some space. And again, I'm not resting my arms. I'm actively reaching through the arms. The palms are kind of pressing down a little bit into the floor, into the mat. So what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of getting my shoulders ready for downward facing dog, which is one of my favorite poses. So to come up, I'm going to bring my hands back under my shoulders. And then I'm going to press up into that tabletop position again. Good. Maybe just a little bit more movement here, a little bit of side to side movement, some lateral bending in the spine. And then I'm going to tuck my toes under, start to exhale, and lift my hips up and back into my first downward dog of the day. So I'm going to keep my knees bent and just kind of hold on here for a second. Maybe get a sense of what I need. I usually like to kind of wag my tail, kind of taking the hips side to side a little bit. And then maybe pedaling out the feet, so bending one knee as you press the opposite heel toward the floor, and then switching back and forth. Remember, you never have to get your heels all the way down to the floor. Some of us are going to be able to do that rather easily. Some of us will never be able to do that because of the way that the bones in our feet are formed. So never push past your edge, but it is nice every once in a while to come right up to that edge and see what happens. Good. I'm going to inhale up onto my toes, and then as I exhale, I'm going to come back down onto the mat. I'm going to sit back onto my heels, bring my arms behind me. I feel like my shoulders are ready for a bigger stretch now. So I'm going to interlace my hands, interlace my fingers, and sort of draw my knuckles down toward the mat. And I'm sort of lifting my chest a little bit, so reversing the thoracic curve. That feels really good. We tend to exaggerate the thoracic curve when we sit at our desks for too long. And notice that I'm not tilting my chin up. I'm keeping my cervical spine as neutral as possible and just really concentrating on that area between the shoulder blades. Good. Let's release. Maybe shake out the arms a little bit. I've got some blocks here. If you've got blocks, feel free to use yours. If you don't have blocks, you can use books or anything else you have lying around that'll do the job of bringing the floor up a little bit higher under your hands. Step my left foot forward between the blocks. I'm going to start to work on my hip flexors and hamstrings a little bit. So on the inhale, I'm going to come forward into a lunge. I'm going to look forward, and my heart is going to be kind of oriented right in front of me. So here, I'm getting some sensation in my right hip flexors. And then on the exhale, I'm going to shift back. And here, I'm getting a stretch on the backs of the legs. So these are areas, once again, that can tighten up when we sit for long periods of time. Exhaling back. Inhaling forward. Good. I can feel those muscles starting to loosen up a little bit. It's getting easier and easier to move back and forth here. And remember, you never have to go any further than your body readily wants to go. Good. I'm going to press back one more time. And then kind of square off and then bring my left knee back to the mat. And now I'll step the right foot forward and do the same thing on this side. So I'm going to start with just barely a lunge and then shifting back just a little bit. And I'm just going to wait for my hip flexors and hamstrings to tell me when I can go a little bit farther. So back and forth. Now we've already worked with the thoracic spine and the cervical spine a little bit, so let's not undo the good work that we did there. So try to keep those areas as neutral as possible. And I think I'll do one more. So inhaling, coming forward, exhaling, shifting back. And then coming back to neutral. And then right knee back to the mat. I'm going to set my blocks aside again. So now that I've kind of worked with the hamstrings a little bit, I'm going to guess that when I get up into downward facing dog, it's going to feel a little more comfortable. So let's give it a try. Tuck the toes under. Exhale, lift the hips up and back, downward facing dog. So not locking the knees here. There's no reason that the legs have to be perfectly straight, but if that feels good to you to straighten the legs and sink the heels down toward the mat, there's no reason not to do it. And I'm kind of lining up my ears with my upper arms. I'm concentrating on lengthening my spine from the tailbone through the crown of the head. That feels pretty good. So I'm going to step my feet wider apart, bend my knees, and start to walk my hands back toward my feet. I'm going to end up in a ragdoll. Feel free to bend your knees as much as you like. Let your spine round, unless you have osteoporosis in the spine. So fun fact, if there's osteoporosis in the spine, we want to maintain a neutral spine, so more of a halfway lift position. But if you've got a healthy spine, go ahead and let it round. Maybe bring your hands to opposite elbows, and maybe a little sway side to side. And as I'm swaying side to side, I can feel muscles on the insides and outsides of my legs stretching a little bit, and it feels really nice. So feel free to experiment with movement. We all have habitual ways of doing some of these yoga postures and movements, but experimentation can be very beneficial, teaching us things about our bodies and also about how our minds work. So I'm going to bring this movement to a close and release my hands to the mat, toe heel my feet a little closer together so they're about hips distance apart again. I'm going to keep a little bend in the knees. On the inhale, sweep the arms out to the sides, rise all the way up into a standing position. Deep inhale here. That feels really good to lengthen the body. And then exhale, softening back into a forward fold. Inhaling to a halfway lift. So lengthening and flattening the back here. The gaze is straight down at the mat in front of you. And then exhale, soften your knees, forward fold. On this inhale, we're coming all the way up. Keep a little bend in the knees as you sweep the arms out to the sides and then reach up. Straighten the legs, get nice and tall. Exhale, soften the knees, forward fold. One more time. Inhale, halfway lift. Move the shoulders away from the ears as you inhale. And then exhale, soften your knees back to your forward fold. Inhale all the way up. Nice deep inhale. I'm going to take a little side bend here. So bring the right arm down to the side. And then slide the right hand down the outside of the leg. Reach the left arm up and over. Root down through the left foot. Relax that right shoulder away from the ear. And then inhale back up. Reach overhead. Lower the left arm and side bend to the left. Reach, reach, reach. Press down through the right foot. Release the left shoulder. And inhale back up. Reach up nice and tall. Exhale, soften the knees. Fold forward. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, I'm going to bend my knees and place my hands on the mat and just walk myself back out into a downward facing dog. Deep inhale and exhale here, broadening between the shoulders. I can feel my low back lengthening here, a little bit of traction in the SI joint. On an inhale, come up onto the toes, and as you exhale, lower the heels to the mat. Sorry, knees to the mat. So we're back in tabletop position. And I'm going to walk my hands forward about 1 hand's distance and then shift forward so my shoulders are over my wrists and I'm kind of in a modified plank. On an exhale, I'm going to lower down to the mat. This is my one and only chaturanga. My shoulders just aren't feeling it today. On an inhale, I'm going to come into a baby cobra, just lifting the head and the shoulders, not pressing down through the hands, just using the muscles in my back to make that happen. So I could even lift my hands off the mat here. And then exhale down. I'm going to do that 2 more times. So inhale, little baby cobra. If you want, you can lift your hands. And then exhale down. One more time, inhale, lift. This time I'm just going to sweep my arms back by my sides and lift my legs and come into a locust pose. So this is one of those poses that you should probably do every day. When we sit for long periods of time, the muscles on the back of our bodies can get a little lazy, a little sleepy. And something like this can wake them up and help them remember how to work. Good. I'm going to bring my feet together, place my palms under my shoulders, press up into a tabletop position. I'm going to pause here for a moment and then exhale back into a child's pose. Just half a breath here, and then I'm going to flow. Inhaling, coming up onto my hands and knees, shifting my shoulders over my wrists. Exhale down. I lied. I'm going to do some more chaturangas. Inhale, baby cobra, or you can lift the feet, come into a little locust pose, and then exhale down. Inhale, up onto the hands and knees. Exhale, child's pose. I'm going to do 1 more of those. Inhaling, shifting forward. Exhale, bending the elbows, lowering down. Inhale, baby cobra or locust. Exhale, back down. Inhale, hands and knees. And then exhale, child's pose of your choice. So knees can be together or apart. I haven't done one with the knees wide apart yet, so that's what I'm going to choose. Lowering forehead to the mat. Reaching out with my arms for a moment, taking a nice deep inhale here. And then I'm going to bring my arms back by my sides and let my hands rest by my feet. And just take a few breaths. I can feel my low back releasing. Kind of feels like a little space opening up right at the top of my pelvis where the sacrum fits down into the bones of the pelvis. One more breath here. And then on an inhale, lift your head, lift your shoulders, bring the knees together if they're apart. And just take a moment, checking in. I feel like my shoulders are sitting a little bit lower than they were before. There's a little more space, a little more softness between my shoulder blades. My low back isn't cranky anymore. So there you have it, my intuitive movement practice. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you'll join me next time. Thank you for practicing.